You're listening to The People's Pitch, the official podcast of Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by footballstadiumprints.com. Let's start the show.
And as I talked about just a couple minutes ago, as Joe Watt stands over this one, he appears to be the one taking the penalty here. This is a huge confidence booster if you're Duluth.
Worst case scenario for City right here.
And it stopped! Yes! And it stopped!
Totally redeems himself.
Matt Elder redeeming himself. Oliver with the right foot. The shot is goal!
Oliver!
Justin Oliver will break the scoreless tie. And it is 1-0 Minneapolis City. Is Hutton now on the offense with the left foot.
Goal!
And it is now 2-0 Minneapolis City.
Good finish.
Nick Hutton taking his quick victory lap.
Welcome back from Memorial Day weekend, friends. This is the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club. I'm your host, John, and with me, as most, is the Nate Morales. Nate, are you recharged? Because we got plenty of things to talk about, don't we?
So this has been a crazy period in the club. It's like, it feels like, John, we had an off-season worth of news crammed into
like 1 week,
3 days between three teams worth of games. So it's been nuts, man. It's been a wild 10 days around the club, and it's seen some ups and downs, some ins and outs, but it's got me excited for what's next. We'll cover off on all the big news that is the coaching staff shakeup, as well as give everyone recaps and previews across all three divisions. Just like my family says about me, it's a lot, John.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you're a lot, Nate. You're very unique. Yeah, we do have a lot to cover, but first off, we'll dust off the topical news. Of course, the big news on the USL side of things is the appointment of former Crow national championship coach Justin Oliver is the new interim head coach. Excuse me. It's the allergy season show where I was draining from everywhere. Let me try that again. The appointment of Justin Oliver, former Crow, as the new interim head coach, replacing Carl Craig, who was not on the sidelines for the first two USL games due to some a registration thing, and then ultimately ending up in a mutual decision to step away from the club due to personal reasons. So Justin will be joined by a staff that consists of Gustavus head men's coach, Tudor Flintham, and the rumor mill, Nate, has been swirling, and that Justin's right-hand guy for the Olies and another former Crow, Coach Matt Gibbons, may also be joining the staff here in a week or so. I think that if you had to make a move this season, this is literally the best possible outcome when it comes to bringing in a staff to lead the Crows for the rest of the summer and potentially beyond. This is an interim tag, so there is a potential that maybe things don't work out. But if they do, then that could be removed. So who cares about all the future stuff? Going to worry about the here and now. I think Justin's a great fit. I think Tudor's a great fit. And even if Matt comes along, you have one young, hungry coach being assisted by another younger or older, but still younger, hungry college coach. And I think that they're just going to bring an identity back, specifically because you're looking at an Oliver who Justin was here. He helped us single-handedly, win a title by himself in one game and then turn around and do it again the next year. So he knows what it is to be a winner for the club, and I'm really excited to have him in.
Yeah, I think this is a great move, and it's just nice that all of the pieces were able to fall into place as they did, turning what really could have been a tough spot for Minneapolis City into something that could all in all be a net positive. I think you already touched on it. Just culturally, what a great fit for Justin to come in and really know what it means to play for Minneapolis City and the value of it and what the attitude that the players need to have should be, right? But on the other hand, you've got Justin, you've got Tudor, potentially Matt Gibbons. These are guys that, in their regular job know a lot of the players we're going to be going up against and know a lot of the players that they're going to be fielding, right? So there's not going to be a big adjustment on their part trying to figure out who's the best fit and what position and what system do I want to play, and I need a couple of games to evaluate the talent. It's like these guys are going to hit the ground running. I think you were there tonight at their first training. They probably already have hit the ground running. It sounds like it was a real positive environment, and everyone's on the same page for tomorrow night. But we'll touch on that in a second. I'm excited for this move. I'm a big Justin Oliver fan, big Oliver Brothers fan in general. So to get Justin, the national championship winning coach, and Tudor, who's a great guy, as his assistant, I think what a win. Lucky.
Yeah, really lucky. This could have gone a couple different ways to Sunday on us, and fortunately it did not. We have to say we wish Coach Carl Craig the best. He was a really great steward of the club while he was here, and he's got his hands in a lot of different soccer things. So he's gonna still be around town, and if you see him, shake his hand, buy him a beer, and thank him for his time with us.
Yeah. Well, Justin and his staff, John, are going to have a little bit of a hill to climb in the USL 2 Deep North Division, as this team, after a strong start in the Minnesota Super Cup, stumbled out of the gate in the USL 2 season, dropping both games without getting on the score sheet. Not the start to the season you want to have. First, away at the Bavarians. I would say the team that traveled was a strong one.
Yeah, roster makeup. There we go. Try to get the frog out of my throat. The roster makeup was in goal, Evan Siefkin; across the back line, Carson Pena, the Kent brothers, and Jonah Garcia. And then in the midfield, you had the three of Gallman, Moreno, and Lionel Vang. And then up top, you had Bernard Asibi Rule, Dennis Mensa, and Hakeem Morgan. And then on your bench, again, really strong, you had Jameson Charles, Morgan Olson, who I think has been a bright spot in the games that he's featured in so far.
Yeah.
Joe Highfield, Scotty Heinen, Cesar Daniel, and Daniel Sessler. Yeah,
John, this was a tough one for me to take in the moment. I'm used to, of course, watching Minneapolis City from above and paying attention to a lot of the details because it's part of the job. But you and I were standing on the sidelines in the I guess the stands, you can call them, on a picnic table at the Bavarians complex, looking directly into the sun.
Just drinking liters of
But yeah, that too. But it was easy to see, I think, that the Bavarians had us on the defensive the whole game. And I'd say particularly down the wings, we were under siege. What were they doing that kept us out of their half?
Well, they kept the ball. It's pretty hard to play in their half when you can't get a hold of the darn thing. The other thing that they did was consistently keep a very high, very disciplined shape on us. So they weren't necessarily always pressing us, but it was just like a wall of blue jerseys that we were just constantly running into. And just they were checking and balancing all over the place. And it was really hard for us to find pockets of space. We really had no ability when we did get the ball in those small doses in the first half to find a way out. It was really well planned tactic by the Bavarians to kind of counter what our strengths are, because we're very good in the counterattack, and we weren't able to actually do that until well into the later stages of the game. But I will say we defended well, even though they did throw things at us, and we were able to do what road teams need to do, and that's keep the home side off the board in the first half.
Yeah. And I'll say this with MVB learning in the moment that he needed to step in to coach. He was in a tough spot, and he needed to figure out how to get a little more out of the team in the second half to really start threatening. And my thought was maybe that we needed to make an adjustment and let Juan Moreno loose a little higher up the field. But instead, in comes Joe Highfield for Lionel Vang. I'd say that he provided some height and some size at the number 10. Lionel was up against some big guys on the Bavarians team, and it was really tough for him to get something going on the ball. And then Jameson Charles replaced Juan, which was interesting to me. I thought Juan was a bright spot in that first half.
He was all over the place.
He was all over the place. He had to track back a lot, but it occasionally was Juan who kind of came in at the last minute from behind and kind of took the ball off of a defender's foot to prevent a shot or to break up the play. So bummer to have seen him gone, but I think, it was Matt doing what he could with the situation, and then Evan Siefkin comes down hard on his hip while he was making a save, diving to make a save, and we had to use a sub to get Sessler in there. So that probably was not MVB's plans. He had to be a little flexible, and it was kind of tough to work with what he had, given that he hadn't set up the game plan, and he really probably wasn't too familiar with what Carl's plans were and how he was going to use the subs.
Well, the funny thing was, on our coaching staff meeting this morning, we were talking about, roster makeup, like game day roster makeup. And Tudor asked, like, have we typically in the past always had a backup goalie instead of maybe putting another field player into the lineup sheet? And we were trying to count. I was like, maybe like 5 times ever have we needed a backup goalie. And then Scotty just goes, make that 6. Sessler had to go in and get some variants. We're like, well, yeah. So recently 1, but a handful. So yeah, Sessler did kind of come in a tough spot. I mean, that's the hardest thing for a goalkeeper. You face no reps in warmups, and then you're like literally thinking you're holding the clipboard, and then next thing you know, you're strapping on the gloves and making sure your jersey has a number on it. You're getting thrown into the mix. So really tough situation for Sessler, but he did come in. I thought he made a really good early save and was able to kind of get his feet wet and did a good job right from the jump. We talked a lot, Nate, you and I, on our long trip home about the style of soccer played in Wisconsin, and it's about as German as it gets, right? So it's typically made up of a sound team shape mixed with the movement off the ball when you have it. And the Bavarians killed us all day with that third runner, and it was only a matter of time until we continued to defend it well, or we make a mistake. And on a quick counterattack in the 80-something minute, I think the 84th minute, 83rd minute, essentially we were caught napping, and the hustle by, I forget what the name of the player was, for the Bavarians to get into the shape and be that third runner, mixed with us sleeping a tad, they buried the one chance where we made the mistake. And after a flurry of late direct attacks, we were unable to really draw level. But by and large, I mean, it could have been the beer talking, but I thought it was a great soccer game, like end to end, like 2 teams really trading blows, and it was really going to go down, and it did, to who made the one mistake the other team could capitalize on, and it was us.
Yeah, and John, I'll say that it was the runner on this one was the guy that was one of the guys that was on the roster as a center back, Seth Stewart. So like you're saying, so when you're talking about third runners, the trick with that is they were coming from everywhere. But yeah, it was funny because you and I saw the MTA 07 team go down the next day to literally the exact same play.
Yep.
It just happened in the from left to right as the ball came across from right to left instead of from left to right. It was wild. So very, very, very German soccer is played in that region.
For the folks that maybe don't know what we're talking about, when it comes to when we say the third runner, it essentially the decision-making tree of the players off the ball when you have it is obviously, the first runner is option 1. Option 1 usually is not necessarily always correct, but it's safe. But it clears out space for option 2. And when option 2 is run correctly, typically that's where people lose track of where the third one's coming from. Because they're worried about the first one and the second one. And then the third run can come from deep, say a central defensive midfielder, a center back. It can come from a outside winger. It can come from a wing back. It can even come from like a number 10 that's kind of trailing through. So if you're focusing on getting the ball and only defending the first option, that's probably what's standard, and you have to do that. Where it gets tricky is in the communication style defensively as to what happens with the other players that are close by. So if you're not paying attention to that, then you get caught. And that's what we saw happen in both those soccer games. Like you said, literal carbon copy.
Yeah. So this matchup, John, Minneapolis City, Bavarians, I think it's been on the razor's edge every time we meet.
Yeah, which is great.
Hasn't it? I mean, all the way back to the beginning, 0-0 draw. And this is one of those times when I think I kind of roll my eyes at ourselves that like sometimes annoying soccer people like ourselves can just sound like we're shrugging it off, like, oh well, soccer's like that. It sucks sometimes. You lose 1-0. But I think you were right. Like, all in all, a really great soccer game to watch. Great soccer played on the field, and we just came up on the wrong side of things this time. But the things didn't get any better against St. Croix. In the midst of this coaching staff turbulence, our rival came down 94 with a full coaching staff and players that know our team all too well.
Yeah, this was a game that could go one of two ways, seeing that MVB had one training session, and in that training session, half of it was us to talk about the departure of the head coach. So already not a great start to the week. But like I said, it can go one of two ways. Number one, we come out just firing guns, just blazing all over the field, and use the situation as a stepping stone. Or two, we fall a little flat and get beaten by a team that I think we match up really well against, where you look at it as like, that's a winnable game. And we, as the cat's out of the bag, we didn't win the game. So we definitely fell into the second part, but we'll talk about kind of what happened in a little bit. Going for the Crows, relatively unchanged from the Bavarian matchup, I believe. You saw Siefkin in goal, the back line of Pina, the Kemp brothers, and Jonah Garcia, the central midfield of Victor Gallman and Juan Moreno. Joe Highfield got the start, and then Lionel Vang moved out wide to match up with Hakeem and Bernard. And then from a substitute perspective, you had Sessler, Sadiq Jabate, Dennis Mensa, Stevie Lamar, Jameson Charles, Morgan Olson, and Andrew Shazinski made his debut on the season. So we talked a lot, or we have a lot to talk about, and we've talked a lot about, all the things that happened to us. So we're going to kind of keep this one brief. The first half, in my opinion, was basically the Luca Constable, Colton Prater show mixed with a little bit of Nathan Donovan. There was acres of space in the middle half of the field. And they exposed it over and over again, putting us under a lot of stress, in particular the Kemp brothers, which I thought did a really good job of being out on islands, trying to have to defend, 20 to 30 yard sprints against big, fast strikers. And as a result of that, of that space, Luca Contestable collected a ball and had about 25 open yards of free space, just picked up his head and just had a peach of an assist with the outside of his right foot. He bent the ball in between both the Kemp brothers, and it landed in such a space where I don't know if Evan could have done any better, because he was looking into the sun and trying to come off of his line that far out in his 18-yard box. He did his best, but Nathan Donovan got to it first and was able to slot it home.
Yeah, that one was exactly like you said. Evan struggling with the sun. It was one of the first games I remember in a while where we either lost the coin toss or got the short end of the stick there, and we were looking into the sun. And you could tell that he wasn't entirely sure where that ball was going to bounce, and he was a little out of position. And all Nathan Donovan had to do was kind of chip it around him. And that was a slow roller, man, as it was going into the net. You're just like, oh no, somebody get there.
Wind blow.
Nope. Yeah. So, in the moment you can chalk that up to, man, we were defending well, even though we looked inadequate on the offensive side of the ball. Like, we were defending pretty well. And that one you could, in the moment, kind of chalked up to, that was tough luck. He's looking in the sun. Let's get one back.
Well, moments later, Victor Gallman had the best chance of the night for the Crows, bombing through the back five of the Legends to latch onto a ball over the top from Juan Moreno. But his flick that did beat the goalkeeper just hits the post and goes wide. And the Crows go into the half down one with a lot to fix, Nate.
Yeah. Let me just, as we went into the locker room, you and I kind of connected with some other people in the booth. And man, it just that first half, like you said, we gave them acres of space in the midfield. We spent way too long just giving St. Croix free run of it. We looked like a bunch of 8th grade boys at the dance. Like, we were at the edges of the field. We really had no hope of getting in the mix. I just could not figure out why. It was almost like every time we had possession, everyone was looking to receive a long ball. It felt like there was no support,
no
there
movement,
were no outlets. It was just like we were just going to end up dribbling right into St. Croix and give the ball back up because there was no other options. It was kind of ridiculous.
Well, it was tough because we defended well, and then when we got the ball into the St. Croix defensive third, I thought we created decent chances, but it was just right in between both of those where it was like there was a disorganization. I think there was maybe a little bit of lack of communication as to like where to be, who does what, and oftentimes you saw two of our central three going to one ball and then creating a gap behind them that is tough for a back line to figure out because you're having to do your job, but then you're like, well, someone's got to go into that space. Do I take it or do I, and then leave a void in the defensive third? Like, what do I do here? So it was kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. But the second half started out a little more energy from the Crows, but still far too much space to operate for the Legends in the midfield, seeing another Donovan goal and then a mop-up goal by Dylan Olsen. And the Crows were, in my opinion, eager to wash this week away and get into the holiday with a new lease on life.
Yeah. And at the end of that game, of course, we didn't mention that Max Kent gets a red card, for his second yellow, questionable call as he was pretty much brought down with an arm bar and then given an elbow drop while he was on the ground. I think he was yellowed for retaliating against that guy, which was a little ridiculous to me, as he pushed him off of him. Yeah. But, so we were, that third goal given up while we were down to 10 men. But I would still say, John, in some of those moments late, as Stevie Lamar comes on, Morgan Olsen, as you mentioned, was a good addition. I'd say if I'm MVB, or now if I'm Justin Oliver, I take a look who was on the field when we could keep the ball, when we could move it around their 18-yard box and create chances, because it was, once you introduce Dennis Mensah, Stevie Lamar, Sadike, suddenly we were able to make some runs. We were able to support each other.
Charles.
And we had some chances. We had some chances to at least get one when we were down 2-0. Overall in this game, John, I thought Jonah Garcia was by far the best player out there for us.
He really was. He really was.
Just a defiant performance so far this year, whether he's defying the fact that he's battling against younger players for his position, to the fact that he's lining up at a right back spot that he hasn't really played much for us and just saying, screw it, I'm going to kill it out here. His movement has been smart. His touch, immaculate, the way he was able to pull balls down out of the air and move positively up the field. His vision was superb. Again, I would say just like against Rochester, it was Jonah that acted as the general from that right back side, getting the ball forward, moving the ball up the field himself, directing traffic, letting guys know where they needed to be. And I thought that's what made the first half so frustrating for me, was as Jonah was moving the ball to us on the near side, he had no support. One midfielder would drop back pretty much too close to the center backs. One midfielder would follow him a little too closely, and the other midfielder would be all the way across the other field, or on the other side of the field. He really had nowhere to go with the ball besides, long diagonal passes that were often snuffed out. So I just think that Jonah so far has been our greatest spark, and I hope to see him continue. That's my biggest takeaway from that St. Croix game.
Oh, for sure. I agree with all of that, Nate.
Up next for the USL 2 team, we welcome RKC Racine, a game that we are dubbing that Minneapolis City has dubbed the Goal Fest Derby, which doesn't bode well, John, for a team like us who lost their starting center back to a red card and hasn't scored in 2 games. So please keep me optimistic about this matchup Wednesday night.
Well, I'll say this. I think the style of play is going to be different. And I think that from a personnel perspective, let's give a nod to Ryan Keefe, who's likely going to be making his debut with the club. 3-year starter at University of Wisconsin. So a Big Ten caliber center back. I think everyone's going to like him in doing the prep for the broadcast. Might put him as our player to watch. I don't know. But I think that'll put you at ease a little bit. That even though we lose Max Kent, we gain another experienced center back. So, like you noted, Nate, RKC kind of picked up where they left off last year in the goal department so far this season with a 6-1 victory over Rochester FC in their first time out. Although the roster has kind of turned over and gotten quite a bit younger, they're still finishing their chances in abundance. So
Yeah.
I don't have much to say from an optimistic standpoint about that. That's just reality, Nate. So take that for whatever you want to take it as.
Thanks.
Where I see this being a good matchup for us is in transition. I did get a chance to watch a little bit of that Rochester game in preparation for our match. And the only reason why Rochester got rolled up on was because they did not play the ball quick enough and they were basically blanketed by high pressure. So our setup that I watched Coach Oliver drill in this week might be the right cocktail to bring the fight to RKC. I think that what Rochester did well is when they did get out of the high press, they were able to counter RKC, and RKC really didn't have a good answer defensively. It was just kind of how they scored their lone goal. Rochester, that is. It was a 1-of-1, and if they could have made that a 3-of-5, it would have been 6-3. So it was just the opportunity for them to get out. So if they had the ability to do that earlier and more often, this could have been more of a game. So I think from what I saw today, if it all clicks, I think it's going to be the potential could be a goal fest, but maybe it's in our favor this time. I don't know, Nate, but cross your fingers.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that was not in our favor last time around was we had no idea who RKC was, and we had no idea how they were going to play or what they would bring to the Deep North Division. And I think now we know we've got a little bit more knowledge, and I think Justin is able to already take a look at that and make adjustments and make a game plan for it. And he knows who he's got, and he knows how to use them. So that is, again, a positive. So hopefully you're right. Hopefully we won't get 5 goals scored on us, and hopefully we won't need the likes of Eli Goldman to score a hat trick to stay competitive in the game. But I think, that's my fingers are also crossed. My toes are crossed.
I think my favorite comment to Eli after that game was, what, you couldn't score 2 more? You almost did, by the way. But anyways, 7:00, Edor Nelson Field, Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. Tickets are available online at mplscitysc.com. Come join us for the beginning of the Oliver era. I think you'll like it. So
I'm pretty fired up for it.
Yeah, me too.
Well, fresh off their 5-3 victory against the Legends 2 team, City's U21s had Austin Villa up next, which I think is, of course, still the best name in the UPSL. This Austin team, John, was a mystery to me heading into this game. And I would say after this week's result, they are certainly a home team that doesn't really do well on the road. And it was unlucky for us that we had to travel there.
Yes, but Coach Roy had it on the road with, I think, a solid, consistent lineup. In goal, Bodine Costed. Across the back line, Aiden Lee, Jeffrey Richter, Rigo Ariano, and Sam Keating. A midfield of Asher Johnson, Mitch Munzing, Joe Swallen. And a forward line of Mizael Harris, Carter Hermanson, and I'm gonna mispronounce AJ's last name. AJ Welje? Is that sound right?
Let's go with it.
We're gonna go with it. And then substitutes: Aaron Chiniver, back of goalie, Tomas Mena, Chris Franz, Johnny Bear, Foster Conlon, Eli Duke, Joey Barica, James Oberholzer, and Antonio Oliveris. I did not get a chance to see this one, but I did my research on this one. Word on the street was it was a total dogfight up at the Villa against a very foul-heavy team. And like you said, it's kind of they were what they were last year in the fact that they were very much so a home team, didn't travel well, and you saw their results were a result of that. But the match itself, after going down 2-0 to the home side, we were able to get a consolation goal back. AJ Welje was able to score one in the second half, and there wasn't enough. And being the first road game, a true road game for Coach Roy's squad in the U21s, I think that it was a tough one and a good test, though. And this division's kind of kind of opening itself up. So I don't think typically in years you lose one game, you lose the division. I don't think that's the case anymore.
No. But I will say, John, the offense came back with a vengeance in the next game. It was Saturday night's home game, and home is in quotes here, against Worthington Community. That was played at Braemar Soccer Fields for one reason or another. I think there was a conflict at the Nelly, and so we had to make the move to Braemar.
And I was on hand for this one. So pretty much an unchanged lineup for Coach Roy, except for substitute Bostad for Chinevere. So you had Aiden Lee, Richter, Rigo, Sam Keating, Asher Johnson, Mitch Munzing, Joe Swallen, Mizell Harris, Carter Hermanson, and AJ were the starting 11. Substitutes: Bodie Gostad, like I mentioned, Tomas Mena, Chris Franz, Johnny Bear, Foster Conlon, Eli Duke, Joey Barica, James Oberholzer, and Antonio Oliveras. So, like I said, I was on hand for this one. I will say, though, that the Braemar, when they take the dome down, it's a really cool field. And it was a good home for us in this one. But it was a really great match with one of the teams I really was surprised with last season in Worthington. I thought that they brought a really strong side to the table when we faced off with them last year, and they had a really strong side this time. City started off really well with large bouts of possessions, but Worthington was able to kind of get on the board first with a really great one-time finish on a counterattack, which would be the running theme. That's where they got almost all of their chances on the day. But Mizell Harris, the Augsburg product by way of Portland, Oregon, was able to see a double in the first half, getting 2 goals and nearly having a third before the break. So the team was really clicking, I would say. Going in with that 1-goal lead at the break, the coaching staff kind of locked up a few structure adjustments to account for the waves of bodies Worthington was just tossing forward at us. However, they were unable to get level and get an early goal in the second frame. And then kind of seeing the game out, Carter Hermanson took the lead back, followed by a late Tomas Mena goal for the Crows off of a nice set piece with the ball coming in from Sam Keating. Nice header off back post. And the visitors, they did draw one back to make it interesting, but it was really in the dying minutes. And on what I thought was a Tomas Mena clearance off the line, but the referees deemed it that the ball did cross. And that was really just one for the stat sheet, as the game was pretty much over shortly after that. So I will say this, Nate. I've now seen 2 U21 matches in the UPSL Premier Division this season. It's super fun to watch. I think every team has quality. And I'm going to say this, and I don't care who hears it, this division is head and shoulders above the NPSL North. And I said it, Nate.
Yeah, I'd agree. And it's coming from surprising places, right? It's a team like Austin Villa, a team like Worthington, who, as I'm looking down the record, lost late to us 4-3. They got stomped by Superior, but otherwise they've got 4 wins under their belt to start the season. Mm-hmm. They've played more games than us, but still really, really,
they got
really,
some
really
quality
excellent
players too, man. They were well trained in.
Yeah. And a lot of people might be scratching their heads like, where is Worthington? I'm with you. Can't believe it. But, the talent that is in the UPSL Premier Division from some of these smaller towns is, I can't believe they found it. It's phenomenal. And it's very competitive. So I agree. Up next, 2 quick turn games. First, Wednesday night against 1826 Academy. That's going to be at North St. Paul High School, home of the Oliver twins.
Yep.
And then home on Friday against Leon. John, the 1826 Academy looks to be more of a grassroots, mostly East African team. They haven't played a lot of games this season. One of their games was postponed early because of weather, but they've done well. They handed losses to FC Minneapolis and, of course, Granite City. So they've got some wins. Leon, on the other hand, on Saturday, is going to have some familiar faces for Crows fans. They sport Eric Contreras, Samuel Ruiz Plaza on their roster. They've also got a couple of ex-Augsburg players in Alex Giles and Tomas Pisa. And they're on a heater recently, man. They had the good fortune to face Granite City and Superior City back-to-back to the tune of around 15 goals scored between the two games for Leon. So this should be a fun one for the U21s and a good test. And finally, for the last game in a packed week, the U19s went to White Bear Lake to take on Manitou FC, and they were in search of their first W. Starters in this one were Sessler at goal. Your defense of Hernandez, Francois, and Bersham, the center back pairing, with Danny Gonzalez out right. Hernandez was the left back. Midfielder Drew Cruz making his debut, his first start for the U19s. Cy Friesen playing the 8 in front of him, and Jabari Kibisu in his usual center attacking midfielder role. The forward line of Hudson Benitez, who scored that nice goal against Bateau FC, Axel Martin as the striker, and Bernard, the CB Rule, suiting up for the reserves. He loves showing up for the U19s.
Hey, they like him too, so
yeah,
why not?
Yep.
So this one ended 3-2, giving the Young Crows their first win of the season, with goals coming from the aforementioned Bernard CB Rule, Jabari Kabisu, and Micah O'Leary, which I didn't see on the starter sheet, so coming off the bench. All coming in the second half. So way to close this one out for Coach Heinen, getting his first victory. I think it's a really good stepping stone, and I'll say it like I said it with the Premier Division. Division 1 is really good soccer. And if you haven't heard us beat the drum of you got to come out and see the kids play, you really do. They're super fun to watch. The games are really attainable, as I don't think that they go on the road far away from the cities if they're not at Edor Nelson. So come on out and check them out. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, one thing, John, that I miss in the UPSL is some detailed match reports.
Yeah, they don't have
on the
that.
web. They don't have that. USL 2 has that. I remember how valuable that was when we were in the NPSL. I really wish we had it for the UPSL. Luckily, I had a couple of spies in the stands, and I think you're right. Like, this was great for Coach Heinen not to just close one out, but I think he kept the team climbing back in it and kept them going until the final whistle. This team went into the locker room after the first half 0-0, having played some nice defense, but they went down 1-0 early in the second half, and then they battled back. Cy Friesen finds Bernard for the first equalizer of the evening, but Manitou struck on a corner to go up 2-1 shortly afterwards, and Coach Heinen used his subs to good effect. And in stoppage time, it was one of those subs, Micah O'Leary, who brought us level again. That came from some chaos in the box. Bernard ends up finding Micah with some space, and suddenly, John, this was a game. And Micah O'Leary continued to have an impact. He found Jabari Kibisu, who spectacularly buried the game winner, giving the U19s their first 3-point night. You didn't see Micah on the starter sheet, and we didn't really know who the subs were based on the info that we had. I hadn't seen Micah yet this season, John. Talk a little bit about who Micah O'Leary is.
I'm going to say this. I am also not familiar with Micah O'Leary.
You aren't?
Didn't see him in the winter. Didn't have him in any of the sides that I was privileged to coach for, or coach with. So the mystery man, Micah O'Leary. We're going to have to do our homework. Come back to you guys.
That's a surprise. That never happens.
Yeah, I was a little occupied last week, Nate.
That's so weird. Well, let's take a step back and assess so far the first 3 games for the U19s. In the first 3 games, they have lost in extra time to an NPSL team and basically to a pro player. They gave up a second half PK that saw 3 points turn into 1. And now they have their first win by showing that they can battle it out for the full 90 minutes plus. To me, John, that shows improvement in every game. Every game, you see the team improving, and you see the team gaining an ability to adjust to this level. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's a testament to how the future is set up is put out there, where the continuity between the guys starts in December or before that, as soon as the high school season starts, when futures tryouts happen. So you create that environment. They go at it all winter, and then you select your side and you hit the ground running. For some teams, though, it just takes a bit. And I would say the 19s differ from the 21s because brand new team. And we've talked about the fact that, more than a handful of the players play club soccer together, but that does not make a team, right? You can have a core, but you still have to figure out how to play with the other guys around you. Yeah. So I think that it was going to take a matter of time for Coach Heinen and staff to kind of find the identity. But in finding that identity, they put out 3 strong performances and have ticked off each column of the in the standings. So it's only a matter of time until they it can go one of two ways. They can catch a heater and become who the coaching staff thought they were going to be, or they could hit a bump in the road again. But it's still encouraging to see when bumps do happen that the young group is showing adversity to fight through those. And it's such a cliche for me to keep saying this, but it's so true that this is what these players of this age group need to be getting thrown into in order to make them ready for their next step. It plain and simple. I'll say it 1,000 times if I have to, but this is the exact environment these players need to be in. It's a lot different than when you're beating up on someone your own age, or you're getting beaten up by someone your own age, where you know how to fight back. It's almost like being the youngest sibling. You don't start fighting back until you hit that one age category where you're like, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to start fighting back. And you might take your lumps, but you get tougher. And then when you get older, no one's going to push you around. So I think it's just a really great spot for these players to be in it, and they're performing in it.
Well, looking at the table for both the Premier and Division I teams, we're about in the same spot. We're about mid-table. In 5th place for Premier, in 6th place for Division I. And both teams have only played 3 or 4 games. While other teams, especially in Premier, have played 5 or 6. So we've got a couple games in hand, and things are looking up. Specifically for these U19s, there's definitely some parity between the top half of the table so far and the bottom half, and we have yet to play most of the teams in the bottom half. So I'm excited for what the U19 season and the U21 season still has in store.
Yeah, and I'm also excited to hear what the reception is after the season's over. So we'll definitely have to bring, for sure, Coach Heinen back on and potentially maybe a player or two, just to ask them like how it went, because it's a new team to the roster for us. So we'll put a pin in that one. We'll write that one down in the notes to revisit. But the U19s are away at Dakota SC this Saturday, June 1st. It'll be a really good opportunity to test their depth. City will be without most of their ECNL MTA contingent, that core we're talking about. So 6 to 7 players they were regularly counting on are not going to be there. And Dakota will be looking for their first win of the season Wednesday away at Eau Claire before this quick turnaround to play City. So they could be desperate for points in that game. That game will be played at Stillwater High School, and it's a 2 p.m. kickoff this Saturday, June 1st.
And that's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you to our wonderful show sponsor, footballstadiumprints.com. Our friends at footballstadiumprints.com are always expanding their soccer-focused t-shirt designs, their prints, and more. Don't forget, use that code CROWS10 for 10% off on everything you purchase. And remember, all U.S. orders ship right here from the States, so you don't get hit with any international shipping charges. As a reminder, Minneapolis City is a 501c3, so you can feel good that your membership doubles as a charitable donation to a club that does good. Memberships for the 2024 season are still available. Don't wait any longer to snag your seats in the stands and get some sweet swag, all for the price that destroys any other club's price of entry. Head to mplscitysc.com and get yours today. Remember, you can always find us on Twitter X at The People's Pitch. We are now on Instagram at People's Pitch Podcast. And if you're my dad, you can even email us if you have any questions or topics you want covered on the show, that email address is mcscpodcast@gmail.com. Actually, thinking about it, my dad wouldn't email me. He'd text me, but he'd write it like an email. And
I was going to say, how do you email a text?
Love, Dad. Like, thanks, Dad. I know.
Yeah. Hey, Nate, it's Dad. Yeah, no shit, Dad.
No, it's right there on the screen. Of course, you can always connect with the club on Twitter at MPLS City SC. That's all for this week. Man, these are like 2 busy ass weeks. And we still got like 6 to go.
Yep.
This is an awesome summer of soccer that is going to kill me. I'm Nate. That was John. The soccer content, it doesn't stop, can't stop, won't stop. So we're going to be back next week with more match recaps and more previews. So much more soccer. But I'm going to see you at the Nelly Wednesday night. John, I'll see you at the Nelly Wednesday night.
And you
got hoofed.
Got hoofed. Hoof 'em.